The vault was sealed for decades. But now, the truth is out. The lost Van Halen album is REAL, and what's on those tapes could change rock history forever. Van Halen stunned the rock world when whispers of a long-buried, never-released record began circulating among collectors, former engineers, and industry insiders who swore they had heard rough mixes tucked away in dusty studio vaults. For decades, fans argued in record stores and online forums about the possibility of a missing chapter in the band's explosive history. A secret session that captured the raw chemistry between Eddie Van Halen, David Lee Roth, Alex Van Halen, and Michael Anthony at a moment when their creative fire was at its most unpredictable. The rumors were not just casual fan fantasies. Studio logs hinted at unreleased reels. Former road crew members recalled hearing unfamiliar riffs blasting through rehearsal spaces late at night. Producers spoke carefully, never denying outright that additional material had been tracked. During the feverish years when the band was conquering arenas and rewriting the rules of hard rock, now confirmation has finally arrived that a full album's worth of recordings truly exists, preserved on analog tape, powerful and shockingly complete. The revelation did not come with fireworks or a dramatic press conference. Instead, it emerged through quiet authentication of archived masters that had been mislabeled during corporate transitions and catalog acquisitions. As record companies merged and rights shifted hands over the years, certain tape boxers were placed into long-term storage without detailed documentation. When archivists began a meticulous restoration project focused on preserving every era of the band's catalog, they uncovered multi-track reels marked only with cryptic session dates from the early 80s. Once transferred and restored, the audio revealed something extraordinary. These were not demos or fragments. They were fully arranged tracks, layered with harmonies, blazing guitar solos, and thunderous rhythm sections that sounded unmistakably like classic Van Halen at their most daring. Listeners who have heard private playback sessions describe the sound as both familiar and startling. Eddie's guitar tone slices through the speakers with that signature brown sound. But there is an added edge, a willingness to experiment with darker harmonies and unexpected tempo shifts. Roth's vocals carry the swagger and theatrical charisma that defined the band's golden era. Yet there are lyrical turns that hint at tension beneath the surface, perhaps reflecting the growing creative strain that would later fracture the lineup. Alex drives each track with muscular precision, while Michael's bass anchors the chaos with melodic confidence. Together, they sound unstoppable, as if unaware that internal storms were already forming behind the scenes. What makes this Lost album so magnetic is its placement in the band's timeline. Recorded during a transitional window between major releases, these sessions capture the group in a rare state of hunger. They had already tasted massive success, but they were not yet weighed down by expectation or fatigue. Industry insiders suggest the label at the time chose to shelve the material in favor of a different creative direction, believing a more polished sound would dominate radio. The decision may have been strategic, but it left behind a raw, snapshot of a band operating without restraint. That snapshot has now become the holy grail for devoted fans who have spent years speculating about what might have been. The confirmation has reignited debate about the band's artistic legacy. Van Halen's official discography is already stacked with landmark releases that reshaped rock guitar, stage performance, and mainstream appeal. Yet the existence of an entire hidden record suggests there is still uncharted territory within their story. Music historians are calling it one of the most significant archival discoveries in modern rock, comparable to uncovering a sealed time capsule from a cultural revolution, because that is exactly what these recordings feel like. They transport listeners back to a period when the band's chemistry was combustible. When every riff felt like it might ignite the arena rooftop. Behind the scenes, restoration engineers have been working meticulously to preserve the integrity of the analog tapes. Decades-old magnetic reels require careful baking and transfer processes to prevent deterioration. Each track has been digitized at high resolution, allowing producers to assess whether minor mixing adjustments are necessary or whether the material should remain untouched to maintain its historical authenticity. Early reports indicate that the performances are so tight and complete that only minimal mastering will be required. The goal is not to modernize the sound but to present it as a living artifact from a defining moment in rock history. Fans who have followed every twist in the band's journey know that lost material has long been part of the mythology. Stories of abandoned songs, shelved experiments, and alternate track lists have circulated for years. What sets this discovery apart is its completeness. This is not a collection of outtakes. It is a cohesive body of work with a clear sonic identity. Several tracks reportedly feature extended instrumental passages where Eddie stretches beyond his established style, blending intricate tapping runs with blues-soaked bends and almost progressive arrangements. Those who have heard the album describe moments that feel cinematic, as if the band was unconsciously scoring the dramatic shifts unfolding in their own lives. The emotional weight of this confirmation is intensified by the knowledge that Eddie is no longer here to witness the renewed excitement. His innovation reshaped the instrument forever, inspiring generations of guitarists who still chase the warmth and aggression of his tone. Hearing previously unreleased performances adds another layer to his legacy, revealing dimensions that even longtime fans have never experienced. It reminds the world that creativity does not simply vanish when an album cycle ends. Sometimes it waits patiently in a vault, ready to speak decades later. Industry analysts predict that, when the album receives an official release, it will dominate charts across multiple formats. Vinyl collectors are already anticipating deluxe pressings complete with archival photos and detailed liner notes explaining how the project disappeared in the first place. Streaming platforms are preparing for a surge of interest, not only in the lost record but across the band's entire catalog. Younger listeners who know the hits from classic rock radio may find themselves diving deeper, discovering a side of Van Halen that feels both vintage and newly explosive. As word spreads, longtime fans are sharing memories of concerts from that era, wondering whether certain riffs or lyrical snippets they once heard live might have originated from these very sessions. The idea that fragments of the lost album may have briefly surfaced on stage before vanishing adds another layer of intrigue. It suggests the music was never entirely silent, only scattered and misunderstood. Now, with confirmation in hand, those fragments can finally be placed within a coherent narrative. This unfolding story dives even deeper into the emotional and cultural impact of the album's confirmation. The announcement has sparked renewed conversations about artistic control, label politics, and the fragile chemistry that defines legendary bands. Insiders close to the original sessions revealed that tensions were simmering during the recording process. Yet that friction may have fueled some of the album's most electrifying performances. Conflict can fracture a group, but it can also sharpen creativity, pushing musicians to outdo one another in pursuit of brilliance. In these newly uncovered tracks, that competitive spark is palpable. Listeners describe one standout song built around a relentless riff that surges forward like a runaway train. Eddie lays harmonics over pounding chords while Roth delivers verses dripping with attitude and sly humor. The chorus explodes with gang vocals that feel designed for stadium settings. Another track, reportedly, slows the tempo, allowing a blues-influenced groove to unfold gradually before erupting into a soaring solo that twists unpredictably, refusing to resolve in expected ways. These details paint a picture of a band unafraid to stretch boundaries, even at the height of commercial dominance. Culturally, the confirmation arrives at a time when archival releases are being re-evaluated not as nostalgia plays but as essential expansions of artistic history. Music scholars argue that lost albums can challenge simplified narratives about creative evolution. Instead of viewing a band's discography as a straight line from one polished release to the next, the discovery of shelved projects reveals detours, experiments, and bold risks that shape the final outcome. In the case of Van Halen, this album suggests there was far more experimentation happening behind closed studio doors than fans ever realized. The business implications are equally fascinating. Negotiations surrounding rights, royalties, and production credits have required delicate coordination among estates, surviving members, and corporate stakeholders. Each party recognizes the historical significance of the material, but they also understand the responsibility of presenting it with care. Sources close to the process emphasize that the release strategy will prioritize respect for the band's legacy over quick commercial gain. That means thoughtful packaging, transparent documentation of the sessions, and perhaps even a companion documentary exploring how the album disappeared in the first place. Emotionally, the project has become a point of reunion for those connected to the original recordings. Former engineers have reunited to share memories of marathon tracking sessions that stretched into the early morning hours. They recall Eddie obsessing over tone, adjusting amplifiers by fractions of an inch, chasing the perfect resonance. They remember Roth improvising lyrical phrases in the control room, transforming casual banter into unforgettable hooks. Those recollections breathe life into the tapes, reminding listeners that behind every riff lies a human story filled with ambition, ego, laughter, and vulnerability. For fans, the confirmation feels almost surreal. For years they defended the rumor of a lost album against skeptics who dismissed it as myth. Now their patience has been rewarded with proof that the magic they imagined was real all along. Social media has erupted with speculation about track titles, cover art concepts, and potential release dates. Tribute bands are already preparing to incorporate the new material into setlists once it becomes available. The ripple effect is undeniable. A band that already defined an era is once again shaping the conversation in rock music. As anticipation builds, one truth becomes clear. The Lost Van Halen album is more than a collection of unreleased songs. It is a reminder that great art can survive obscurity, waiting for the right moment to re-emerge. It reinforces the idea that creativity leaves echoes, even when hidden from public view, and it proves that the legacy of Van Halen remains vibrant, capable of surprising the world decades after their initial explosion onto the scene. When the first official single from the restored sessions finally hits the airwaves, listeners will not simply be hearing old recordings, they will be experiencing a reclaimed chapter of rock history, loud, unapologetic, and gloriously alive.